A long time ago, when I lived in San Francisco and worked at a hotel, there were so many perks. We got free theater tickets. We could have gotten tours for free so that we could tell guests about those tours, and restaurants and plays. And we worked with several travel agencies, but one in Europe we had a particularly close relationship with, and I don't think they were part of Carson Wagonly, which is was very big in Europe at the time. I think it was maybe they were a branch, but it was an office in Switzerland. And I remember once one of the agents came for a visit and stayed at the hotel, and she brought us all gifts. And being from Switzerland, she brought me chocolate. I don't remember if that's what everyone got. I think probably. And it was like a foot-long chocolate bar, as I recall, very similar to the Trader Joe's Pound Plus bars when they used to be longer and thinner in the 90s. They changed them around 2000. And it was the best chocolate I've ever had. Obviously, Swiss chocolate and European chocolate's different than American chocolate. And anyway, and again, it was just the best chocolate I'd ever had. It was so smooth and creamy and rich, and the just most chocolatey flavor. And I remember that I would, instead of biting down and chewing it and eating the whole thing like an American chocolate bar, I would break off a square, nibble a little piece, and let it melt on my tongue, because I wanted to savor it. I wanted it to last. I wanted every square, every bite, and the whole bar to last. And that's how I felt about you. You thought I was older and had lived in big cities and was, sophisticated and out of your reach, and you could never be enough for me. And your insecurity, gosh, it pushed me away. And the sad and heartbreaking thing is, you were like that chocolate. You were quality over quantity. I didn't want to just be like I was with other men, where I knew there was nothing great about it. It was just okay. It was just to satisfy an urge, like that hit of a regular chocolate bar. It was just sex. It was just for now, until I found someone better, until I found someone worthwhile. Maybe it was a one-night stand. Maybe it was a couple weeks. Heck, there were guys I dated 3 or 4 months, and I guess you didn't know that was probably my longest relationship before you. And those 2 years with you, even though they were broken up and people interfered, and I went through so much hell because of people's jealousy and their lack of approval, and most of all, probably your insecurity. But you were that Swiss chocolate bar. You were the thing I wanted to savor and enjoy and last, because it was richer and fuller and better and more beautiful, and something that was like nothing I've ever had before or since. And it breaks my heart that we lost that insecurity and other people's racism and issues with my age and my appearance got in the way, because I remember how you looked at me, because I had wished other men had looked at me like that in the past, not the men I dated. And that's a whole other thing, right? I remember being so embarrassed and trying to explain to you, it wasn't that experience that dumb men asked me out and smart men didn't. And to me, that was a humiliating admission, because I was saying I had so little experience, really, and I had even less experience if you were talking about love versus sex. I had lots of what people would call unrequited crushes, but at the end of the day, I realized so all the ones that really meant something to me were just like you. And there's only been one since you, and it was the same. He would stare at me, little googly eyes and nostrils flaring and face flushed, and never make a move, never admit his feelings, never actually ask me on a date. Offered to cat sit when I was in the hospital, offered to pick me up when I was in the hospital. Anything, he would do anything for me, but he couldn't just ask me out. And that was the one time someone was pressuring me to date someone and be with him, and I was like, I'm trying, and he's not asking. And I really liked him, and he's the only one since you that I really connected with and cared for, and probably only because I'd known him since college. I'd known him 20 years, and he'd always stayed in touch, and that should have been my first clue that he'd stayed in touch with me for 20 years. But I'm clueless, and sometimes people are clueless, and they don't notice, and they don't realize that the person that they care about and think is impossible is feeling the exact same way. And that was the really crappy irony with you, is that not only were the people around us clowning me and belittling me and talking mad shit about me to you and making the idea of you being interested in me or me being interested in you ridiculous, because we were, and I'm using some serious air quotes here, opposites. You're white, they saw me as black. Even though I'm biracial, that doesn't exist in the world of bigots. So therefore we were opposites. I was fat, you were very thin. I was 10 years older than you, and if our sexes were reversed, that wouldn't be a crime. Even if our sexes were reversed and nothing else changed, no one would tell a black or a biracial man that they couldn't date a 25-year-old white girl. But people told me that every day, including my friends and people who supposedly loved me, and they thought they were being helpful. They thought they were trying to teach me a lesson, because, when you're marginalized, you always have to learn the lesson. You always have to learn the lesson that no one can love you back. And you should just accept yourself. Where have we seen that recently? And I realized in some of the discourse online around Stranger Things and Byler, and the way people are leaving shitty, nasty comments on my channels and on Reddit and on boards. It's the same thing over and over again. It's just in a different skin. I'm not a gay boy, but I can relate so much, and I think that's deep down. Over the last few weeks, I've come to realize why I resonate so much with this story. It was never, as people try to portray it, that I was a pervert who for some reason wanted to see two gay boys be together, when quite the opposite. If anything, Mike Wheeler would have been my type. I like a tall, skinny boy with curly hair. That's my jam. A nerdy, skinny dude, that's been my jam since the 80s. I'm the same age as those characters. If anything, I would want to see him with biracial Barb in the background, who's a little chubby. I wasn't that fat in high school. I was just bigger than the other girls who were 5'1" and 80 pounds, and I was 5'8" and 160. Yeah, looking back, I was like a size 11, and you would think that I was the size of a barn, the way people treated me. But no, I was curvy, and I look back, I hate that I thought I was ugly, because I was never ugly, but I was made to feel ugly. And I will say that's one thing you helped me get over, because I saw the women that you would get drunk at parties and make out with and cheat on me with, and they were all hideous. And that's the first time in my life I was like, yeah, I'm not ugly. So thanks for that. Thanks for helping me get over a lifetime of feeling like I was ugly and repulsive, because that is what people really tried to drill into me in grad school. That we were ridiculous together, and maybe we looked ridiculous because our bodies are so different. But are you your body, or are you your heart? Are you your mind and your soul? And I was naive to think that someone could see me, the person, instead of the body that I'm walking around in. I know the body exists, but for me, I didn't like red hair, freckles, or beards, and yet those were not deal breakers, apparently, and that surprised me. But I fell in love with the person. We fall in love with the person, who they really are. Not only is that real and deeper and more lasting than being attracted to a body, because I can see a body that's attractive. I can see that someone's cute or handsome or pretty. And does that mean they're kind or caring, that you're compatible? I've actually been on dates with really handsome guys that were totally flirtatious and into me. And in fact, one of them came in when we were all hanging out at a bar. I asked him to meet me outside, and I was going to go home with him. And unfortunately, he came into the bar where we were all hanging out, and you were all territorial, and it's so hilarious that everyone thought it was one-sided that I liked you when you were so territorial and judgmental. And on the drive back to his apartment, he was like, who was that guy? Why was he so into you? Why was he being so crazy? But everyone else was gaslighting me. It was one-sided, and you couldn't possibly be attracted to me, and the truth was so hilarious because you'd stare at me from across the room. If it was a movie, it would be so obvious. The way you stared at me, the way you chased after me. There are men I wished had chased after me the way you did back then. Where you couldn't get enough of me, where you'd ask me out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, where we would be together every day, every moment we weren't in class, where I'd have to say, look, I got homework to do. I have to do stuff. And even still, you'd come over and make breakfast because we had to eat. It's hilarious. Even at the time, it was ridiculous to be just gaslit so much. Like, he's just being nice to you. He's just using you for your car. When I didn't have a car the whole first semester, we would walk across the freeway to go to the grocery store, to go to Fridays and eat shitty food on Friday nights, because that was our date place, apparently. Fridays. Oh, I have to laugh. I'm grateful for so many of those memories, but boy, the pain that I was left with, because you weren't strong enough for me. You weren't able to do the right thing. You cared so much about what other people thought that you lost the person you cared about the most, and the only person that you trusted with your real self, with your religion, with your heart, with your secrets and things that you thought. You used to ask me, don't you think it's weird? Don't you think other people will think my religion's weird? Maybe. Fuck them. Because if they think something about you that you love is weird, there's no future. At some point they'll find out. They'll find your robes or your books or something. You can't let them close enough to be in your space where they'll find something out that you don't want them to find out, and maybe they won't belittle you about them, and then you wasted time hanging out with people who would never really like you, who would never really care and never really see you, because you had to hide parts of yourself for them to accept you. And I really tried to impart that to you, because even just being 10 years older, there's a certain wisdom in not everyone's going to like you. I'd had enough jobs and schools and friends and friend groups where I just learned not everyone's going to like you. You take the ones that do and you cherish them. and you hope to keep growing together. But anyone that's going to judge you based on your color or your hair or your body or your height or lack of it or anything like that, or how much money you make, or all the things, all the anxieties that you shared with me, that you were so worried what people would think about you. And isn't that the irony? Because I was the marginalized person. I was the person constantly being judged for how I looked. But being, a thin white man, you could just blend in. You could be part of the crowd, any crowd. And you could hide the parts that you thought they would judge, especially your religion, especially your real name. And just don't let them see your driver's license, and then you don't have to explain why you had a Muslim middle name. You can hide by that common name, right? And no one ever had to know. But I knew who you really were. And that's the person I loved. I didn't love the performance that impressed everyone else. Because drunk, lecherous idiot is a dime a dozen. And I hope that in the time since we've seen each other, you've come to that realization. I hope to God, now that you're in your 40s, you realize that the real ones, the people you should hang on to, are the ones that are open to who you are and love who you actually are, not who you pretend to be. Because life is too short, and there are trials and tribulations and pain, and the people that only like you for you seeming to blend in are the first ones who are going to turn their back on you when there's a real problem, when you can't hide who you are anymore, when you really need someone to be there for you. So I hope that you've learned that. I hope that you're happy. And I hate that we lost something truly beautiful that I haven't experienced before or since, because of what a bunch of bigots thought.